one more slide, and then we will wrap up. I just this there's going to be a pop quiz on this tomorrow.
Love those.
It's not in my handout. And am I gonna get
It's
a
not in your
little
handout. You
on
probably
that?
can't even read it from there.
Okay.
But
It's open notes.
So, it's open notes. So the idea here is, here are these strategic priorities and goals. The strategic leadership model, the circle diagram, this shows which one of the networks would have the primary lead on that goal. And then this is looking backwards and saying, okay, of what are the current city strategic priorities that I showed you at the very beginning. This is how they align. Interestingly enough, fun, entertainment, and culture isn't in there, isn't in the current priorities at all. And then there's how it aligns to the comprehensive plan themes. And the one that's missing in the comprehensive plan is quality government and innovation, which makes sense because that's not what the plan is supposed to, the comprehensive plan is supposed to focus on. So that's just sort of to give you a sense that they do line, there has been some alignment done, and you know, this isn't just something that's, you know, new and created from whole cloth. This is pulling in all of the work that's been done from all of these past commissions.
Okay, so this is the present, coming from the present comp plan, which we just
We're
approved.
just trying to make those connections, because the language is not the same, because there's the comp plan, it's pretty much more a land use type plan
Right, which is-
than it is a strategic type plan.
And
But
it's
we
also
did
very
want, because
aspirational.
there's been so many plans, we wanted you to see there are connections. We may not be using the same language, we've tried to refine it a little bit, because some of the categories in there, I'm not quite sure exactly what some of it, they fit for the land use plan, but when we're trying to actually message it out and get it out to citizens and they put initiatives to it, we wanted to make sure it was a little bit more understandable or, you know.
A little more tangible.
And
A little more tangible.
Yeah. What, I like that, you know, but it seemed like if we could have even a longer chart to talk about plan of action and implementation and who does it and budget. I mean, that, to me, this is the beginning, but it needs to go, I mean, maybe not today, but that it goes further out, to, you know, that it's expanded out. Now, we don't just stop here, but then we talk about, because every time we do, well, I won't say every time, but at the times when we have a task force and we would do the comp plan, we never got to implementation, or if we got to implementation, we never got to funding, and we got to, so I'm just saying, to take it further out than just to make the alignment, but then the alignment comes along with the plan of action and with the implementation and the whole piece of that.
And if you like, tomorrow I can pull from some of the things that I've done with other clients where we moved into that, show you sort of like a template almost of what that might look like.
Right. That would be great. Thank you.
I'll say that comment in case I need it.
Yeah, sure.
I just don't want us to go down to the point where we become a council micromanaging that.
Right.
I mean, at some point, these are handed off to people to do.
Right, and I would say that plan of action really is much more relevant for Cindy and her department heads than it is for you all.
I'm not saying that we have to do it. I want to see it extended. I don't care who does
We
it.
just want to know that it exists.
I don't, you know, it doesn't matter to me. I ain't into that. I want to know that we have thought it through.
Yep.
And that we're taking it beyond, excuse me, Mayor, that we're taking it beyond where we are today. I don't have to do
Y'all
it.
need some
Somebody else
special
have to do
counsel.
it. But I'm just saying.
This is a 40-year history. You're not going to change it.
I'm just saying.
Oh, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, this is 40 years of stuff. So, you know, but I'm just saying, I don't have to do it, Madam Manager.
I hear you.
I'm just asking the question, how is it gonna, how are we doing that? And it doesn't mean that I have to do it, I just wanna know that we're doing that.
I hear you.
And if we're not doing it, then why are we doing this?
Again, I'm trying to remember which chart. We have a
The
lot
one
of,
that was an appendix.
okay, we have a lot of information we can share it. Some of it, I'll be honest, I didn't want to confuse the issue
But
too
that's
much
okay, but
because
y'all know I
I didn't
have
want to spend a
questions,
lot of
so-
time trying to get folks to understand that I won't say it's not relevant, but it didn't need to be where the main focus would be in your first conversation, in your first review of that, but yeah, we could tomorrow show you or hand out today what that looks like.
We don't have to. I just wanted, I'm just saying, if you give me something, you know I'm gonna have a question. So now the question comes.
Exactly. That's why you didn't get the chart.
So the question is, when do we cut you off from the question?
When God closes my brain, and I pray He doesn't do that, because that helps to keep
We have
the
3 years of
conversation
this.
alive.
But serious, and but again, just before we close, to recap, the whole idea of us doing this is to do something, because I've heard too many times about all these plans and they're on the shelf. What are you doing with these plans? We're pulling all of it together and trying to take them all somehow in a cohesive fashion off of the shelf, figure out what still works, what doesn't work, get it in front of you and say, what do you want us to move forward on? So when we're having conversations with you in the next weeks and a month about these different issues, and you say, well, no, this doesn't support what we've talked about, or this does, or as Becky, why isn't that in there?
And so, for those of you who are going to spend all evening reading this in detail, and I will, okay,
You will.
I would suggest that one of your screens be, is this in fact what we want to do in this city? 2 is maybe, is this what we want to do in the next 5 years? 3 is, what do we want to do in the city that's nowhere mentioned, right? Have fun.
And one of the things that I would like to say, thank you. Cindy, thank you. Thank you. But under fun, because I'm still fun. I still want to be fun. And you got to engage young people. But I think we need to engage all ages.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think that's really important. And it's not just about the young, because I still think I'm young. I'm not lying to myself. But at the same time, I think what we're talking about, if these are our strategic goals, that if we are a fun city, that it's not just about engaging young people.
And so I want to encourage you all to think like that, okay? And you know, I could give you like the long shaggy dog story about how it evolved and how that ended up in there, but that's not relevant. What's relevant is, that's not really that's not what we wanted to say. It's, you know, who cares how it got there? Let's get rid of it.
Well, I didn't say get rid of, I'm saying, and all,
Right, change it,
all
fix it.
citizens, all
Okay.
constituents.
Yeah. So
All constituents.
very much a draft, very open to change at this point. So
And
with that, let's
but I would
close.
anticipate, and I would want to make sure that we go through this, and for those that can read it, and I know everybody won't be able to be here from council tomorrow, so I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to be inclusive, that at some point in the not too distant future, we program an extra hour into a work session or whatever it takes, and make sure we have an opportunity to go through it again and get comments.
And I think when we're looking at those dates, we, you know, like we're saying now, program it somewhere in the future, it should be said now, before this, in 3 months. And really looking at a date, so everybody will have plenty of time, and nobody can have a whole lot of extra excuses that they weren't informed, that we put it on there before we leave.
Well, and what I would propose, this doesn't wait, because this is a document that we're going to be using kind of as our foundation when we're coming back to you to talk more about your operating budget and your CIP. So my suggestion would be not necessarily your next council meeting, but your first meeting in December, which we probably are going to talk to you about the CIP. If we make it a little longer in the first hour, whatever it takes, is we make sure we get feedback from everybody and you have an opportunity to comment a little bit more on this, and you will have had time to read it and digest it. And for what I didn't
Wait,
want to
but
do,
you said the first meeting in December.
yes, that first council meeting in December that we will just schedule.
That's all. I was going to say, well, number one, I hope.
That's what, yes, the only council meeting in December. And I don't know the date of it, but we would suggest it, maybe it's 2 o'clock, and we go from 2 to 5, and we don't schedule anything else on there, but there's some conversation. Because I get that it's hard for additional days. that if you tell me you'd rather have a different day and spend the time as opposed to tagging it onto a work session, those are the kinds of things I need to know though. Because I have to tell you, when we go back and we try and schedule these, and I'll get Mabel to attest to it, it is very, very difficult. Because you are also busy and engaged in so many things. And that's great, and I appreciate that, and I want to be responsive to you. So, if you tell me, you know, collectively that you'd rather have a different date, or a third Tuesday instead of the second, and do the second, third, and fourth one month, and we talked about something, that I need you to be thinking about that also, and maybe at the second meeting in November when we're all back together for the council meeting, we can have that conversation and come to some consensus about what you would like to see. I'm not saying it's hard and fast, but I've discovered from your schedules, I need to start about 6 months out, and that's still not good.
What in December, I'm sorry, I think the agreement meet with schools?
I think you had talked about we weren't doing that.
No.
We were gonna wait, and that mainly was because you will be talking to them and they'll be coming forward with their operating budget. The first meeting in December is too soon for that, for them, so rather than them have, you know, December, January, February, wherever that timeline is, that they would just come closer to their operating and present their operating budget to you. I don't know when that is yet, you know, Dr. Parker and I are talking about that, but unless council, but that was my understanding, was at this point in time, it didn't make sense to talk about that, and I know the committee is still meeting, and they may have some things that they want to come out of that to offer up at that next joint meeting. Those are the kinds of things, and that was some of what, you know, a little bit of council business you could talk about more, but I clearly am hearing you want opportunity to get more information, to learn more, to share more. I just need some kind of consensus as what makes sense.
Looking to the future.
Having fun.
Having fun.
You guys have to tell me, is it,
I think it's just a longer work session periodically as needed for the information, as opposed to trying to find another date.
That's what I
Everybody
said.
show up, it's
Disaster.
great.
Yeah, and then we can look at quarterly or bi-monthly.
well, to your point then, we will look to do that first meeting, the only meeting in
In December.
December, we will look to do that. Now, because I don't want to let too much more time
Right.
go by on it.
Yeah.
Has to be.
But I think that meeting, the day, 2 days before Thanksgiving, your next meeting, might not necessarily be the best time to schedule 2 or 3 hours extra on your work session. If that
Especially
makes
not doing
sense.
budget season.
What do you mean?
Especially not doing budget season. I have no time for work session.
Okay.
So we're ready to wrap up for the day.
Yep, and
Did-
you got a final thing?
Now just to,
You can talk to us about this evening.
whoever wants to come in, and dinner is at 6:30 where lunch was. It's a dinner. We just thought around, that's at 6:30, around 6 o'clock or even earlier. There's a little,
6 or 6:30? It does say 6 on the agenda.
it says 6, but that's for the social.
Oh, okay.
That was a
Claire told
we,
us
for
that.
anybody who wants to come, I don't remember, it's called the Hunt Club or something. There's a little social area, there's a pool table. You know, just if folks want to mingle and have an opportunity to chat.
Say-
On the very, I think right around the corner from the
It's sort
restaurant.
of on
It's a
the
what?
front of the
Oh,
building.
The front,
It's
yes.
little.
Cindy, I think they
Dinner at
switched, I
6:30.
think they switched it, put it in the same place with the restaurant. That's what they told me. They said it's in the same place.
Okay, well then
Yes.
I'm gonna defer to David because you have
Okay, so David, tell us what
information
you
about
know.
That's what they did. They pulled me out a minute to let me know that where we're gonna have dinner, it's gonna be the same place you're gonna gather for the social. They're just gonna do it in the same location. where the dinner is.
And that location is
Where we're gonna do the dinner.
the restaurant where we
Yes.
were at lunch.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's probably back in that same general area.
In the back
Just an
corner.
opportunity, you know, to chat.
It's 6.
So,
That's at 6.
so basically gather and socialize at 6, dinner at 6:30 is the plan? Okay, and then tomorrow, our plan is to start at 9. I have.
Breakfast in the restaurant.
Breakfast is
at-
buffet in the restaurant,
At 8
and
o'clock or that time from the.
I don't know when they start serving, so I mean, if you're somebody
I don't know,
who.
but I'll find out and
Yeah.
let you know.
So what about this room? Do we leave our things here, or do
You will be back here, yes, so I think your things would be okay. I wouldn't leave anything necessarily.
They will clean up in
Yes.
here, so
Yeah,
it's
but I wouldn't
probably a good
necessarily
idea to
leave
sort of
a
lean
table or
your
something.
stack, if you will, but I think it's probably okay to lean your stack.
And you best take my books.
Well, there you put it.
I
Let me
can
just-
take notes on that.
What then? Yeah, this one.
Very important.
I was successful
Yay.
in separating this.
Oh.